Hello and welcome. My name is Evgeny Rusakov and you're watching TVP World, interview from Vilnius. This weekend, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia disconnected from the electricity system BRELL and connected to the continental European electricity grid. So everything that's left from BRELL now is just two letters, B and R, and let them stay there. To discuss BRELL, its leftovers and Baltic States synchronization, we are joined today by the Adjunct Professor of Bologna University, Arūnas Molis. Arūnas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Very nice to meet you again.
Discuss.
Sure.
But before we start discussing this synchronization, let's first mention BRELL. So could you please explain what was it about? Now I'm saying what was it about because it's in the past already, and when did it appear? What was the idea of it?
Okay, so let's first of all define that BRELL is a legal treaty. Okay, that's the legal agreement actually, which defines our participation in the so-called UPS-IPS system, which is the joint electricity system, a kind of a Soviet legacy. So basically the BRELL is the agreement which defined our participation in this system, and which also put on us and on other partners, as you mentioned, also Belarus, Russia, Estonia and Latvia, some legal obligatory things we had to implement, as for instance to provide the reserve in a case of insufficient electricity supply. So basically it means that this treaty, which was signed in 1983, and we joined in Lithuania this legal treaty in 2001, so it's not valid on our soil anymore.
I guess that's good news, right?
Yes, we were preparing for this step.
In the context of today's geopolitical situation.
You are very much correct, because what it meant for us that we had to rely on the transmission system operator in Russia in the environment where this state is our, you wish it or not, but kind of an enemy, right? So we had to deal and we were obliged to fulfill some requirements of the operator of the legal entity which may operate against our interests, national interests, which is of course kind of factor which can harm our security. So
okay, so it's good that you've mentioned security, because my next question is totally linked to threats and all that stuff. So again, how much of a threat was BRELL to the Baltic states?
I would tell, first of all, that what we did in a weekend was more a symbolic step, which is, of course, also important. And symbols and the political decisions are important. But what I say that, on one hand, our preparation lasted for, let's tell, at least since 2007. So it's almost 20 years since the first agreement on synchronization were signed. And then we started the implementation of the first projects. And at this point, we came basically to the end with these projects. So they are already in place. That's one thing. The next thing is that, the Baltic states did not purchase the electricity from Russia and Belarus already some time ago. So we didn't have any kind of trade in electricity with these states. And according to the treaty, actually, one of the points says that we have to exchange the information on how the system works. And we didn't do that already also for a certain period of time. So our transmission system operator some time ago, the head of the company Litgrid, was telling that the BRELL in essence was already dead some time ago. So therefore, actually, you cannot tell that we accomplished something in one day and we eliminated some threats in one day. We were eliminating them step by step.
By the way, you've mentioned this interesting thing, exchanging information. What does that mean? I mean, could you please explain this specific term for our viewers? What kind of information should we be exchanging with Russia, Belarus, and rest of the ex-BRELL?
Well, the essence of BRELL, the essence of this legal treaty is the agreement on how we provide the balancing services and how we provide the reserve services in the case of insufficient electricity supply. So actually, in order to get these services, in order to provide these services again, It depends actually on what kind of situation you have. You have to communicate actually. You have to know about each other. So what kind of plans each party has, and then what kind of maybe maintenance plans are approaching, and then all this kind of stuff.
And some of that information probably is of a national security, and well, Lithuania obviously and other Baltic states would not like to share that information with Russia and Belarus.
On one hand, you are right. On another hand, it's inevitable to share this information if you are in one system, in one electricity system, which you want to maintain in a kind of a positive way, if you want to have it operational. So you have to exchange this information. But the Russian side actually stopped the exchange of this information, as I understand, already some time ago. So it wasn't necessarily
we from
our
side
initiative.
Did not do anything wrong, right?
We did not do anything wrong. We, until the very last step, actually, we fulfilled all our legal obligations. But what I want to stress that already before the 9th of February, the BRELL, in effect, was not operational, was not valid in practice.
Okay. So you've mentioned this date, 9th of February. So on the 9th of February, the Baltic states synchronized with continental Europe. Now, what is this synchronization about? How much time did it take to prepare for this step? And why wasn't this synchronization possible earlier?
Well, I would say that we had in our strategic plans the synchronization with the continental Europe already at least 20 years ago. So we were working on the plans practically, I would say, since 2007, when the first agreements between the Baltic states were signed. The Baltic states and the so-called US UCTE organization signed the agreement on the future synchronization of the Baltic network with the continental Europe. So it took for us, as you see, 18 pure years to implement actually all the requirements and to implement, first of all, the infrastructure projects. Why so much time was required? So I would say that we fulfilled this project, step by step, and then there were some different phases where the dynamic was very different, I would say. And the essential breakthrough happened in a period of 2017-2019. When several milestones were achieved. First of all, we got, or finally we achieved kind of the agreement with Poland, actually. And then first of all, we agreed among ourselves through which state in the European Union synchronization will happen, because Poland also had the alternative, so some of the partners were maybe thinking about Finland, so there was a debate on that, and it was finally decided that the synchronization will happen via Poland. And then Poland also agreed with that, because it also put some obligation on the Polish side. And therefore, when we discuss in the Baltic synchronization, so we all the time have to admit the input of Poland. That was a huge, basically, milestone to reach the agreement with Poland. The second very important milestone to reach was to receive the understanding from the European Commission. Because if we look at the costs, so the costs of the synchronization, it's counted for about 1.6 billion euros. So it's a lot. Well, we are lucky that at least 75% of majorly all the projects were financed by the European Union. So on this you also had to receive some kind of a blessing from the European Union. And finally, the projects, infrastructure projects. You have to start, you have to purchase the equipment, you have to overcome all the difficulties during the COVID period, during the economical crisis and the geopolitical uncertainties. So therefore, actually, implementation of the projects also took some time. But already some time ago, already 5 years ago, it was more or less clear that we have to finish the synchronization somewhere around 2025. So more or less everything happened as it was planned.
Which we did. Okay, so there are different opinions. I have to look at all of them, and some of them say that this is purely a political decision. So how much of a politics was in the decision to to terminate the contract with BRELL, with Russia and Belarus?
I would put the answer maybe into different angle. I would first of all fully agree that this is very much political. On the other hand, without the active engagement of the politicians, nothing would happen. So the agreements, the major agreements, are signed by the presidents, by prime ministers. The active engagement of the heads of the European Commission also was very much necessary. So of course, politicians are present, so therefore this step is also very much a political one. On the other hand, as I tell, symbolically and at some point practically we had the date of the 9th of February, but at least in Lithuania it took 20 major projects, infrastructure projects, to be completed. So it's about iron, so it's about the infrastructure, about the equipment which had to be installed. So it's not the politics actually. We are about to cut all the lines which connects us to Belarus, Kaliningrad and the Russian mainland. So basically it's very much technical as well. It's very much economic also. Well, the projects had to be financed. The finances are coming from financial institutions. Financial institutions are also looking at a lot of different economic factors. So everything was engaged. Policy and economics and technical things. I would say that the social, communicational things are also very much important. So it's kind of a huge success of very different sectors.
Okay, so briefly, you've mentioned the Kaliningrad region. What now? It's definitely not our concern, but still, I'm just wondering what happens with Kaliningrad. As far as I know, they were also preparing for that step.
Yes, they were preparing. So first of all, I would assure that neither Lithuania nor other Baltic states are somehow breaking some international obligations or treaties. So everything was done legally 100% correct. While talking about the factual situation, so Kaliningrad is becoming an isolated island in this case.
Okay.
So they are not the part of the system.
Energy-wise, right?
Yes, energy-wise, they are the island, one of the smallest in the world. Let's also agree on that. But very well prepared island. So they knew about our plans. So we were informing about our plans, Russia. And that this country basically built all the infrastructure they needed. So first of all, generation infrastructure. So they can satisfy their energy needs by themselves. They are self-sufficient.
Okay, so what happens now after this synchronization is completed? What's in general? What
we have important responsibilities. We become responsible for frequency management. We inside the Baltic states, so we are responsible to have the sufficient frequency on our market. What's also important to stress that we are still continuing some projects, important interconnection projects. Harmony Linkas, for instance, which is going to be open for the commercial, for trade of electricity, so for the commercial needs. It's also important that, we are taking care about our generation capacities. So being responsible for the frequency and being responsible for balancing and the reserve issues, we have to have the sufficient generation. So we are taking care about some even gas-fired power plants, as for instance in Elektrėnai. We completed the total maintenance of these units, so we are ready to produce if there is a need for that. And then having all this stuff, interconnections and some reserve units, this will be a very important kind of the factor which brings the dynamics in the development of the renewable energy sources. So we're going to have more flexible generation. We're going to have some additional storage units as well. So the batteries will be also on the market. And this will create some additional possibilities to introduce more wind and solar power on our network.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, Arūnas, thank you so much for joining us today. And I have to say, happy Energy Independence Day to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you. And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was the Adjunct Professor of Bologna University, Arūnas Molis. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.